Hi there and welcome. We're now joined by Patrick Kirwin, who's a garden designer, and he's going to be sharing some information about some really cool sculptural plants that are going to be hardy for sun and shade here in the Austin area. And it's great to have you back on the program, Patrick.
Thanks for having me back, Tom. Appreciate it.
Well, it's always fun to visit about plants I don't know much about. That's one of my favorite things about the show is I get to learn so much when I'm doing the interviews. And you've brought a selection of plants that I really like. I'm like a lot of other gardeners out there, I like really bold sculptural things. And the plants that you brought today are plants that will work in that kind of way, but they'll work in sun and shade, which is something you don't often find.
Right. It's really hard to get those kind of textures, especially the blues and the maroons in a shady environment where you can actually see the sculpture of the plant as opposed to just kind of a green blob.
Exactly.
So we've got a few different color forms and different shapes and different flowering mechanisms. So there's all kinds of neat stuff here.
Well, there's palms, agaves, dyckias, and dioons. So we have a wide variety of things to talk about. We're going to start off with talking about a plant that I'm not very familiar with. This is a Florida native, I understand.
Florida native.
Called needle palm.
Needle palm. And at the base of the plant, it has, very large needles that point up.
Well defended.
Well defended, and it's from the Florida Panhandle, and it grows naturally on limestone, so it works well here in Austin.
Great.
And it's also one of the more cold hardy palms that you'll find. So this will grow in Dallas and Amarillo, and all the way through Texas.
Yeah,
so,
and when we were preparing for the interview, you told me that they even use this in the Midwest.
Yeah. I mean, this is an extremely cold hardy palm, and it's slow growing, so there is a little bit of patience needed, but it's very cold hardy.
So, and my understanding is this is a compact form, forms clumps. How big does it get here?
Here it would probably get about 5 by 5, maybe 7 by 7, if it's in a really happy spot. But, in Florida, it obviously gets a lot more rainfall than we do here. If it's under irrigation, it'll maybe get more towards the 7 by 7, but it's going to be slow.
Well, I always like the clumping palms because they're not going to get out of hand, and that looks like a good one. Right next to it, we have another variety, and I love this one because it has that kind of silvery sheen on the leaf.
It's a really nice palm, and they're just coming into the trade in the last few years. So Florida's had a little bit of a jump on us in getting them into nursery production, but
and the name of this one is it's Mediterranean fan palm, but we're calling it the blue form of that, right?
Right. It's the blue Mediterranean fan palm. Some debate on the species versus variety, but
it's always happening in the plant world.
Yeah. We got to keep the taxonomists happy. But this is a really beautiful color, kind of a blue jean blue. And in the sun, it stays a little bit compact, and in the shade, it gets a little bit stretchy. The petioles kind of stretch out a little bit.
That sounds great.
But a nice shimmer in the wind. Just a really beautiful color for a shady environment.
Well, certainly one that would pop out compared to a standard green. And again, similar form to the one we just talked about, the needle palm. It forms a clump. Doesn't get too big.
Correct.
Yeah.
5 by 5 here, 7 by 7 if it's really happy.
Okay, so another great choice. Love the color. Crazy about anything that has that kind of blue cast to it in the garden. The next one we're going to be talking about is one called Mazari palm.
Right.
And this is a desert species, I understand. And that seems odd. Palms and desert.
It's kind of a contradiction, but this is a Middle Eastern palm.
Oasis, perhaps?
Close to oasis, but will, once established, be very, very drought tolerant. Once was used as a crop out in West Texas. It was experimented with as a dryland crop for its fruit. And this is the green form. It also comes in a blue jean blue type color.
Cool.
And very, very tough. You know, definitely suited for Austin's environment, and extremely cold hardy too.
So I mean, if it will survive in West Texas and produces a fruit, has a cool form, this is a winner.
Yeah, this is another kind of clump forming palm. Sometimes they'll get a little bit of a trunk, but not terribly tall like a sabal or something.
Sure. Well, I like the sound of all of the things that you described there, and we need more plants that produce fruit, I think. And people are hungry, literally, to include more of that in their garden. I know that I am. The next plant, we're going to jump from the palms now to an agave that does great in the shade. And there are several species of agave that do. This is one called Agave bracteosa, but I understand this is a special form of Agave bracteosa.
Right. This was found by Pat McNeil, a local nurseryman, and he put it into the tissue culture lab and has gotten, you know, lots of them, so they're available for sale.
Right.
They do come in smaller sizes. I chose this one just so you could see, you know, almost a full-size one, and just see the form of it. But what's really nice about this agave is there's no spines on the edges, and there's no pointy parts at the ends of the tips. So it's a very soft agave, and you know, you could put it in a more high traffic area in the shade than you would opposed to another type.
Exactly. Well, it's not quite as dangerous, that's for sure, as the other agaves. Now, one of the things about this, the Calamar version of Agave bracteosa that we have here today is that this doesn't offset as much as the other regular Agave bracteosa.
Correct.
And there's a real advantage to that for some gardeners, at least my perspective on this particular plant.
Yeah, I mean, the Calamar actually looks really great in a pot as a specimen plant. And you, like you said, you don't get all the little pups coming out of the bottom that you have to work with.
Right.
So as a solitary specimen, it's very well adapted for pot culture.
Okay. Now then we have a group of, now I never know if I'm saying this right, dyckias, but cool terrestrial bromeliads.
Yes, these are from the Brazil area, most of them, and these guys are tough, and they will grow in the shade, in the sun. They'll take water, they'll take drought. They're very floriferous. They have
great colors too.
Great colors. These are the orange ones. They come in yellow. And the real neat thing about Dykias is the foliage color. It comes in reds and maroons and greens and light greens.
Right.
And
you get the blooms like we're looking at now, but you also get these amazing leaves. And often you'll have like a maroon leaf with a silver underside, with, you know, that dusty silver, which is awesome.
Right, and they actually come in silver too. I forgot about that. That's one of the forms that they have, which is a beautiful one to have. And these are just hybrids of species, but just a really tough plant for Austin.
So be on the lookout for these folks, and a great hummingbird plant too.
Yes, wonderful.
I had the pleasure of visiting with my first hummingbird of the season yesterday. With its little nectar dusted beak, it was really quite cool, and the more that we can attract them into the garden, the better. So that's something to be on the lookout for. Great for rock gardens, great, as you said too, sun or shade for these plants.
Not real deep shade, but you know, filtered under an oak tree kind of shade. Dry shade, yes. Yeah, and most of these will do well under dry shade once they're established.
All right. Well, we have a Dioon as well, and people are familiar with sago palms. They understand the cousins of this particular plant family. But these are actually even, the Dioons are more cold hardy than the sagos, aren't they?
Some of the species are more cold hardy. The real advantage to the Dioon is they look like they belong here. They're from Mexico, and they are very drought tolerant, very acceptable of water, and they can take actually deep shade or sun. Unfortunately, we are becoming a state that's getting cycad scale, and that's becoming a problem in Texas. And Dioons are one of the plants that cycad scale does not attack. So
that is very good news for me.
This is, you know, for all those people who have sago palms and have had problems, this would be your replacement plant for those.
Wow.
They're not as quite a trunk-forming palm or cycad, but they definitely have the similar foliage.
Beautiful plant, and I am crazy about mine, and there's some blue forms of this as well. We're going to have to wrap it up, Patrick, but people can be in touch with you. You're a garden designer.
Yes, sir.
Have a website, and the website real briefly.
It's khsgardendesigns.com.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure visiting with you. Great selection of plants. And again, folks, don't despair if you have shade. You can have all these cool species growing in your gardens as well. Again, our pleasure having you back on Central Texas Gardener. Coming up next, it's our friend Skip Richter.